Chisels everywhere. Welcome back to part 2 of our chisel series. We have our Stanley chisels right there, and I grabbed some of these out. These are just cheap chisels that I bought at a garage sale for about 15 bucks. They are new, but I'm going to be working on those later, so I set them out. And these are some hand carving chisels that I'll be working on a little bit later. But I wanted to go over the sharpening process with you and how to set up these chisels for the first time. And so what I have is some sandpaper laid out. I have 200 grit, 600 grit, 800 grit, and 1500 grit. Now, you can add, and I should have added 400 grit also, because you want it kind of go at least to greatest as far as the grit, and you want to go pretty steady through those. You can also add 2000 grit and 2500 grit to the end of this process. However, I'm going to be finishing on a diamond stone, and so I'm going to forgo that particular process. I'll also be using a leather strop, and we'll get to that a little bit later. This is a piece of tempered glass, and under it is a pad that you put in your shelves or your cabinets, and it just keeps it from slipping. I use Windex as a stropping agent. It works very well. It's cheaper than anything else I can find out there, and it works fantastic. Also later I'll be using a product called Brasso, and it works very well for any kind of metal polishing, but definitely what we're going to be doing today as our finish work, it is just fine. I'll take you through the entire process beginning to end with one chisel, and I'll use the biggest Stanley chisel so we can see really clear kind of what it does and what you need to look out for and all those different things, and then we'll get through it. Also, as a side note, I am copying a man named Paul Sellers. I think I mentioned him in the other video. He's a fantastic woodworker, and there is absolutely nothing that I'm going to be doing on this video that is anything better, more in depth. There's no more information I'm going to give you than what he can. And so I'm going to include the link to his video in the description at the bottom. And if you want to watch his first and then mine, if you don't want to watch mine at all and just watch his, that's fine too. So definitely check out the expert when you can. So I'll leave the link to Paul Sellers' sharpening video in the bottom of this, in the bottom of the description. I know my camera angle is a little funky, but it's kind of the best I can do with what I got. So I've got 200, 600, 800, and 1500. What I want to do is work on one at a time. So I'm going to put these to the side, and I'm going to turn them over so I can see the numbers on the back and make sure I continue to do them in order. So best thing to do to start with, just your Windex. I'm going to spray the bottom of the glass, and this is going to sit down on it. And some people will use glue adhesive on these. I have not personally had. I want the straightest edge towards the back side. That's why I did that. I have not had any problems with it really slipping, as long as there's moisture on the bottom of it and also moisture on top. So I just wet that down really good. Take your chisel. Now here's the most important thing. You want the flat side first. We're going to work on this flat side of the chisel, and you want this to be as flat as possible. My camera's not great, so I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, but there's tool markings that whenever they cut this chisel with the machine, they left these markings, and so that's going to give you, when those start wearing down, that's going to give you an idea of what's flat and what's not. And so I'll do my best to show you kind of where it's concave. And a good quality chisel, it's going to be flat on the back, on the sides, and right up here in front. And right here in the middle, there's a heart, there's a little sweet spot, and it's usually concave just a little bit. But we'll work on it, and we'll see how it looks. And you're just pressing down as hard as you can. I know you probably can't see that, but there is a little bit of a circle right in here that is not coming in contact with the paper, at least not as much around the edges. And that's actually exactly what you want. This back here is going to be flat, and this up here is going to be flat. And it's going to continue to get flatter as you increase your sandpaper grit size. And so that's exactly what we're going to. I'm going to do a little bit more on the 220 here, and then we'll move on up. Now we'll move to the next grit. Set that aside. Same process. You can begin to see where it's polishing there on the front end, right up here. And what that is doing and showing you there kind of in the light is that as that polishes out, it's getting flatter. and back here as well. So we want to continue to work on that until we see it more clearly. And as you go up the grit, as you get more and more fine detail, this will actually extend down, and that's what you want. If you're having a hard time getting your sandpaper to stick or to quit moving around, instead of gluing it, you can get a small clamp and clamp one corner of it, keep it flat, make sure you got enough Windex on it, and that will allow you, once you get started, to keep that from moving. And so what you should be sort of left with is, you can see the polished areas around here, the side back here and to the front, and that's not exactly as good as I would hope and I would like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on it a little bit more. I'm going to go back through the stages one more time. So if you get to this point and you don't like the way it looks, if it doesn't look uniform, if it's not even, you can go back through your sandpaper and do it all one more time. So I'm going to do that, and I'll bring this back at the end and we'll see if it's any better than it is right now. Okay, so I finished. It's still not as great as I would like, but it's not bad. So I'll continue to work on it. There's a couple more steps here that we're going to do, and then we'll get it done. Also, while I was going back and finishing this, I realized that the camera's on the same table that we're working on, and so if it's a little shaky, I really apologize. I will strive to get some better equipment in the future, but for now, this is what I have, and this is what I'll use. So the next piece of equipment we'll use is actually a diamond sharpening stone, and these are by no means cheap. They're expensive. They actually come in a 3-pack, a coarse, a fine, and a super fine. This is the super fine, and my fine and my coarse have not arrived yet. I just ordered them, and they're not here yet. So I did the sandpaper, and then I'll finish with this. Let me make an impassioned plea. I'll tell you what, let me get down so you can see me. Let me make an impassioned plea. If you do sandpaper, that's fine. It'll get you by. It's a great way to do this, but it gets expensive. And so I'll give you one tip on sandpaper. If you will Google your automotive supply store local, you can get bulk sandpaper in these fine grits. And I think this comes with 50 sheets, and it was about 15 bucks. If you go to Home Depot or Lowe's or Walmart and get sandpaper that way, this is going to get very expensive very quick. On the other side, these diamond stones will last you forever if you take care of them, and they're about $50 to $60 a piece. I know it sounds expensive, but you got 3 of them, they'll never wear out, and they'll replace all your sandpaper. And so it's really a better way to go. Sandpaper works fine. It's a little arduous, but these work even better, and in the long run will be cheaper. So just my little side note there, if you can afford it, make sure that you go ahead and buy these diamond plates. These are called Easy Laps, EZE-LAP, and their specific brand. I'll leave those in the comment section as well, so you'll have access to order those. Diamond stones, same principle as the sandpaper. Just going to put a little bit of solution on there, and we're going to take our chisel. Now, something that's important is you want to work your chisel the same way you were working it on your sandpaper. So I was working it this way, and if you're going up and down on your sandpaper, you want to continue to do that on your diamond stone. And the reason is you want your polish in the back to be facing the same way. So I'm going to have to kind of half mine out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to count those strokes, and I'm going to do the same as I move this forward. When you're done with your sharpening process, at least on the back, you got it down sort of flat to the way you want it. The next step and the last step on the back is to strop it. Now I have a strop that I was given by a barber friend of mine. He's a really good friend, and this is a professional strop. You can actually order these online. There's a couple of different companies. The Chicago company is a great one, Chicago Strops, and they're a little expensive. They're about $60. One thing you can do, and if you'll watch the Paul Sellers video that I list below, you can make your own, and that's a fantastic way to go also. But for now, I'm going to use the one that was given to me, and I'll show you how to do that. Now you want this connected to the table, and I don't have a vise set up at the moment, so the best way is just to clamp that down. And there are a couple things you can do. You can use a jeweler's rouge, which is what I'm going to be using today, or, and I might use this later for the other side, any kind of metal polish will work. And this stuff is really cheap. I think this thing was probably $2 and it'll last a long time. So that's a good way to go as well. I'm going to use jeweler's rouge to get started. You're just going to coat this leather. Now there's some discussion as to whether you should use the smooth side of the leather or the rough side. And what I have decided is the rough side will hold more compound. That's this and that other polish. And so that should be the side that you use. You can do whatever you want. That's the side I'm going to use. Now once you do this, same motion as before with your sandpaper. So whatever you're doing, if you're going this way, that's the way you want to go. If you're going sideways, that's the way you want to go. You're just going to run it back and forth. I don't know how well you can see that. Probably can't. But it's beginning to polish so clear you can see your reflection. And so I'm going to keep working on this, and then I'll show you what it looks like at the very end. I actually changed my mind. I'm going to try a little bit of this more of a liquid compound and see if that works any better. I haven't tried this particular product yet, so I will test it out. Now you might have been wondering, what about this front part? And this bevel right here is just as important as the flat side. However, when you get this polished flat and you get it the way you like it, you can come back and you can sharpen this bevel. Now they come from the factory and you will think, well, that's pretty sharp. It's definitely not sharp enough to do quality carpentry work. And so we're going to sharpen it on this stone. Now what I will start with is I'm going to go through the sandpaper again. So the 220, 600, 800, 1500, doing the same thing I'm doing on this stone. But I'm not going to bore you with that. You can do that on your own. So you want to take it, you want to follow the, let me get some Windex on there. You want to follow the angle of your chisel. You don't want to do anything, and you want to just put all your weight into it, and you're just going to go, just going to pull away. Now this isn't where you want to go back and forth. You want to pull and try to keep it on that angle. And you want to do this with all of the sandpaper process that you did with the back side also. Now what you're going to be left with, and you can feel it, is a little burr on this back side. You can feel it with your finger, and I'll show you how to correct that. But I'm going to work on this just a little bit more to get that sharper. I've got it pretty close to where I want it. So I can still have this burr back here. So you're going to flip it over on the flat side again, and you're going to take it one time straight back. And what that does is it pushes the burr back on the front side. Now back to the strop. Last step, we're going to work on this side again, and you're just going to hold it firm, and I do it 60 to 80 times. And again, you got it polished like you like it. Come back, that back side flat, and pull straight against it. I'll be honest with you, I'm not 100% satisfied with this, so I'm probably going to go back and redo the sandpaper part. I just didn't get it as flat as I wanted on the back. Your chisels need to be flat on the back. That's the most important part. And anyway, I'm just not happy with it, but I'm going to go back and redo it. The process works, and so follow the process. Don't trust me. Watch the Paul Sellers video. This is super sharp. This is cardboard. It just slices right through it. Now the bad news about this is you have to do this particular process for every single chisel that you have. Flat chisel anyway. The good news is that you only have to do the flattening part once. Get that done properly, and you shouldn't have to come back, with the exception of just cleaning it up every time you sharpen it. This is a fantastic method. It's fairly inexpensive. Like I say, if you can afford the diamond stones, order those on Amazon. They're definitely backlogged right now, so it takes you a month or so to get them in, but well worth it. Hope you enjoyed our chisels. Our next project will be coming up this weekend, so stay tuned. God bless you guys so much, and have a great, safe weekend, and we'll catch you next week.